All right. So to start, just a little warning. The following presentation contains awesome slides with flashing images for storytelling purposes. Any events described may or may not be fictional. All right. Hello. You must all be new to co-working at this brewery. Let me introduce myself. I'm Jess, Ozzie, Engineer X10. My life is to write YAML again and again and again. People love it when I break out into song during my workday. You're welcome, everyone. All right. But with my 10x ability, this place should be called the Ozzie Works co-working space. I work for Big Corp, and I'm kind of a big deal. But I'm sure you already knew that. Big Corp sent me to DevOps Days Rockies last year, and I'm still wearing the t-shirt. This is because there have been no security incidences since I put this t-shirt on. And let me see here. Let me see. And if you're wondering about that smell, it's because I haven't washed it yet. Or wait, maybe it's not the t-shirt you're smelling. It must be my lunch. I've been microwaving fish, and I get so many compliments here. No. Ozzie, are you microwaving fish again in the office?
The smell lasts for days.
Aw, thanks, guys. All right, wait, what's that? Are all of you just getting into Kubernetes? Let me show you the perfect cluster that I made all by myself. Behold, Ozzie's production cluster. All right, we've got Big Corp workloads running live, and frankly, it's flawless, right? I don't know what everyone is going on about. Kubernetes isn't that hard. All right, so listen and learn. I've moved all our Big Corp microservices into containers. Lift and shift, baby. All right, and all of these run as pods. You can see them as app in the bottom of the cluster. All right, I've set up services to manage the networking between our apps so they can talk to each other. All right, Big Corp already had a big surge of demand after we put up the cluster. And obviously it scaled to meet all of their needs. HPA. All right. So everyone in this brewery is very lucky to have me here. The perfect engineer. You know what? I'm going to go talk with management. I deserve a huge promotion. You all wait here. I'm going to go talk loudly next to someone else so they know how important I am. Hey, do you mind?
Oh, excuse me.
Jeez.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Nova, and I'm here in this co-working space too. And I'm so sick of that Ozzie guy walking around here like he owns the place. He needs to be brought down to earth, am I right? And I'm the one to do the job. You see, I look pretty friendly, and I really am a deeply kind person. Like I buy my friends lavish, thoughtful birthday gifts. With money I make stealing from people in co-working spaces like this one, people really should be more careful. So really what I do is I come here and I pretend to work, but really what I'm doing is watching people. And sometimes I see some bozo who walks away from his laptop with it unlocked. So I have this tool, let me fish it out of my pocket, called a rubber ducky hot plug. It looks like an innocent USB flash drive, but really to the computer, it's a keyboard that's typing at superhuman speeds. So I'm just gonna plug it into Ozzie's computer and cause some trouble. I'm gonna tell you exactly what I'm doing with the rubber ducky later, but meanwhile, since I'm here, let's do something to mess with them in the short term. Okay, I'm going to use Ozzie's credentials to commit a YAML change so I can run my workload on his cluster. Then I'm going to take away Ozzie's cluster admin RBAC privileges so he can't easily stop my running application. RBAC is role-based access control, and it's used to define what a cluster or a user or service can or cannot do on a Kubernetes cluster. So next, I'm going to pull up my app in his browser. Great. I'm going to get my rubber ducky. All right. Now I'm going to lock his computer. Oh my God. Look at this guy's lock screen. This guy is something else. Okay, I have to hurry up and get back to my computer before anyone sees me.
All right. So management said they're going to call me back later because they're busy right now. All right. Let's see here. What? Nova rules? Ozzie rules? All right. First of all, the pillow was wet before I went to sleep. So you guys know. All right. But why is that URL pointing at BigCorp? Oh no, Nova has somehow accessed my BigCorp cluster. And I know Nova, or I know of him. Some fool got pwned by Nova the other day, and all of the engineers in the brewery were laughing at them for weeks. All right, and apparently Nova got pictures of them, and they had to transfer Bitcoin to Nova's wallet, and Nova's still asking for more. All right, there was an investigation to find out who Nova is, but we couldn't find anyone in a black hoodie and an anonymous mask. All right, I'm going to have to hurry up and delete this site before anyone sees it. All right, let's see. Oh, shoot, I'm getting an error. I don't have permission to delete the workload Nova created. The error message looks like my RBAC permissions have changed, but that's super weird. I give myself full admin privileges, so I can do whatever I want on this cluster. How could this have changed? All right, luckily, I keep an offline kubeconfig file in my kubeconfig file, which has full admin privileges. I store this safely on a USB key that I keep in my wallet, right next to this picture of myself. All right, let's plug this in. All right, great. I have cluster admin access again. First order of business, delete Nova's workload. Who drools now, Nova? All right. But if Nova has their sights on me, I better try harder. Now that I'm back into the cluster, we should probably harden it to keep Nova out, right? Hardening is where we make our Kubernetes cluster more secure, making it harder for people to attack. And while I'm at it, I should probably have a more secure way of storing this backup account, something better than storing it in my wallet. But we might need access to my backup admin accounts in a break glass emergency. We should make sure we know who can access it and when. But I guess this is better than that time I had that sticky note with all my company passwords. All right, well, let's see here. I'm going to use a secrets manager to store this securely, but equally having it offline in a literal safe, making it physically secure could be a good option too. All right, using the break glass admin account, let's update the RBAC. So instead of having most privileges, I have least privileges when connected to the cluster with my normal Ozzie account. All right, just enough to do the work that I'm supposed to do and nothing more. All right, and now that I think about it, the Kube API probably shouldn't be available to everyone on the public internet. At BigCorp, we already have strong security in place to control who can access the internet or the internal networks of our cluster via our cloud provider. So using my cloud provider, I will put the Kube API server onto a private network. So randos can no longer access it, but people in BigCorp can still interact if needed, right? This is more secure, but I've hit a problem. How do I manage what's running on my cluster if I don't have direct access to the Kube API? My Ozzie account has view-only access now, so how am I going to create, apply, delete, or patch my workloads, right? I've heard about this GitOps thing, and it's getting really popular. It's like infrastructure as code, but for my cluster. I could put all of my YAML files into a Git repo, and then I can use GitOps to monitor that repo for changes to the cluster configuration. CNCF tools like Argo CD and Flux can help me with this. Now, the GitOps tool will be the one to interact with the Kube API and deploy all the company workloads. This all happens within the private network. But how does that help here, right? Well, instead of me applying changes directly with kubectl from my laptop, right, my GitOps tool can compare my desired state, the configuration in my Git repo, to the actual state of my cluster and bring them into sync. So now no one should need direct access to the cluster except maybe privileged people and only in emergency situations. All right, I can grant the GitOps tool access and have it manage updates via the Kube API. Awesome. We've improved the cluster security by locking down the Kube API. Now, if someone wants to attack my cluster, they will need to compromise the Git repo. All right, next, let's scan the cluster with KubeScape. KubeScape. All right, KubeScape is a CLI tool that scans clusters, YAML files, and Helm charts, detecting misconfigurations and giving recommendations. All right, I'm going to look at these results now to see if there's anything else I can do to improve my cluster. Man, I don't know why everyone's so scared of Nova. Oh wait, I know why. Not everyone is as awesome as me.
I wonder what's going on over there. I've been watching my Ozzie Drool's Big Corp website in my browser. Looks like Ozzie's taking it down. That means I lost a bet. I totally bet my friend that I'd stay up for at least a day. Oh well. Let me tell you what else I'm up to over here. So remember that innocent-looking rubber ducky hot plug I used to interact with Ozzie's computer? Here's what I did exactly. First, I made a copy of his kubeconfig file, so now I know the IP address of that cluster he made, and he won't stop talking about. Actually, since I'll have his IP address, maybe I can put my website back up if his Kube API server is still public. Hold on. Since I know the IP address of Ozzie's cluster, I can use a software called Nmap to scan the ports, and this tells me he's made his Kube API server private. Bummer. That's okay, though. I have so much I can and I will do. So back to the matter at hand. With the rubber ducky hot plug, I was able to get the IP address of Ozzie's cluster and also Ozzie's private SSH key. Now I have his identity. I also got his SSH config file, so I know where Ozzie's private SSH key can be used. And I took the Git config files, which shows me all of the URLs to all of the Git repositories that Ozzie's contributed to lately. So with this information, I can make Git commits as Ozzie. Oh, I intend to cause him so much. Is your phone seriously ringing right now?
I'm sorry, I gotta take this. Okay, nice. This is the CFO calling me, probably about that promotion I deserve. You know, how am I going to spend all this money? Maybe I'll switch from microwaving fish to microwaving lobster. Ozzie speaking. Yep. What? Nope. No. What? Our product that retails for $100 is being sold for like $15? We're losing money on every sale? That can't be right. I built the cluster myself. Okay, I'll fix this mess. Okay. Let me pull up the financial spreadsheet. Hey, all right, we're selling our $100 product for $13.37. This is a disaster. What kind of idiot, rookie, liability coworker of mine changed the price of our product? Let me check the Git commits for the payment service. Wait. It was me? I didn't do this. I didn't change that code. I've been here the whole time. You've all seen me here, right? Here's my commit code that sets the value to 1337, though. Like, someone must have stolen my identity. All right, let me revert the commit. If only I could remember how to revert commits. I know. ChatGPT has the answer for me. All right, let's plug that in, and great. That's how I do it. All right, that looks okay, right?
No.
Hey, be quiet. All right. So I'm in a super serious situation over here, and some of us are working really hard while you're probably thinking of TikTok dances or something.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's totally what I'm doing over here. I'm doing TikTok dancing.
All right, let's see. Wait. Someone just reverted the revert that I just reverted. The price is back at $13.37. How did I set up access to my Git account? I made sure it was secure. I even used a private key that's only on my machine. And this private key is like a super secure password. But how would someone have access to my private key? All right, I have to stop any future commits. This is bad. First step, let's revoke my old SSH key and create a new one. All right, cool, done. All right, next, let's revert that commit again. But this time, I'm going to sign this commit with git sign. Now, let's inspect the commit. That looks good. And then with git sign, now anyone who wants to make a commit will have to authenticate with OAuth, meaning if someone steals my private key, they will also need to log into the BigCorp SSO provider. The TLDR here is that git sign provides an extra layer of security, and now I'll have the last laugh instead of Nova. Dang, he is a good hacker though. All right, let's check that spreadsheet one more time. Back to $100 and we're okay again. Whew. Man, it must be 5 o'clock somewhere. I wonder if those beer taps are open. All right, so now that we've seen how hackers can cause havoc, this shows us how important it is to secure your Git repos. If someone has my password, they can create a random key and commit as me again and again. Right? This is why we've also set up multi-factor authentication. That way, to gain access to the repo, people will need access to my MFA device in addition to my normal auth like username and password or just my private SSH key. I should have set this up a long time ago. I guess I was just too busy thinking about how good I am.
Wait, what? Back to me already? Ozzie wishes. I'm running circles around that guy. Ozzie's about to notice that his cluster is running some unknown container image for his message queue instead of the company-approved one.
Why is my cluster running some unknown container image for the messaging queue instead of the company-approved ones? That's weird. Our messaging seems to be working just fine. There's no help status alerts. This must have been from a commit earlier on. It looks like that image is being pulled from an unknown registry off the public internet, but we host our images on our internal registry. Why would this image be coming from a random registry on the internet? All right, let's run a kubectl describe on the messaging queue service to check the details. All right, looks like the name of the image is Nova Images Generic Messaging App 1330 Nova. Oh man, let's see if this messaging queue is doing anything suspicious. I can see that the data being sent is being sent to an unknown web address. The address is definitely not a BigCorp endpoint. Oh no. Nova's Nefarious Messaging Queue app is sending a copy of the information outside of the cluster. It's been quietly collecting customer data this whole time. Oh crap. I underestimated Nova and maybe overestimated myself? No, I'm awesome. All right, still, let's figure out how to fix this. I'll add a Kubernetes network policy to ensure that the messaging queue isn't allowed to send data outside of the cluster. The messaging queue app should be taking a request from our website app and passing it to our database app inside of the cluster. There's no reason any part of the messaging queue should be sending data outside of the cluster.
So while Ozzie's been distracted with my prank websites and his product prices changing, I've been doing my real money-making attacks. This whole time, the real hack has been running quietly in backgrounds. The company message queue has been running my image, my message queue app, even though it looks and feels like it's behaving completely normally. I've been running this background data pipeline, and it's been streaming customer information to me ever since it launched. And I'm going to sell it for big money. Money. Wait, it stopped? The information stopped being sent. Shoot. Oh, Ozzie must have put Kubernetes network policy in place. As much as I hate to admit it, Ozzie's starting to get better at Kubernetes security. Lucky for me, though, Ozzie hasn't noticed that other container that I put into his cluster. I still have one more big trick up my sleeve.
Okay. All right. We've protected the cluster with the network policy. Next, let's fix the messaging queue. I'll restore the BigCorp messaging queue by rolling back changes to a version before the Nova application was deployed. But how can I do more to prevent these types of attacks? I've clearly defined which apps in my system are allowed to send egress traffic, which is not the messaging queue app, but I can do better than that. what if someone got access to the network inside of the cluster? Could they hijack network calls between pods? It's good to make sure that we are not using plain text data transmission and instead have encrypted communications. This is like how HTTPS is used to prevent snooping on internet traffic. I'll add a service mesh like Istio, Linkerd, Kuma, or Cilium. A service mesh is used to set up a network inside of our cluster, and it has some additional features that we didn't have before. We can encrypt all traffic between the pods so that our internal traffic can't get intercepted or inspected. A service mesh can also offer authentication, providing identity between services. Having this encryption plus identity features is called mutual TLS or MTLS. And a service mesh also helps to automate certificate management, and service mesh also adds fine-grained network policies, also network observability. This is great. Now I've protected my service-to-service communications by adding a service mesh. How awesome am I? All right, but how can we prevent Nova or any bad actor from making unwanted changes to the Kubernetes cluster in the future? If someone has access to the Kube API, they can apply whatever YAML they want. Then our cluster will run it. This is how Nova made the changes to our messaging queue. All right, let's see about using a cluster-level policy tool like Keyvarna or OPA Gatekeeper. These are policy engines that work directly with the Kubernetes built-in admission controllers. Using these tools, we can add organization-specific rules about what is allowed or not allowed by the Kubernetes cluster. Let's start by making a rule that prevents images from being downloaded from unknown image registries. Instead, images must come from the BigCorp internal registry. So now Nova won't be able to infiltrate our cluster with any more malicious images. All right, done. I'm glad that there will definitely not be any more problems in the cluster in the foreseeable future. Yeah. Nice.
Excuse me. There's a big flashing red sail on your dashboard right now.
You clearly don't know how dashboards work. Get out of here. It's supposed to do that. Leave me alone. I have important things to do. Huh. The policy that I just added is notifying you that there's a problem. The new policy is alerting about another image being used in the cluster. There must be another image coming from a registry outside of BigCorp. But what image could be triggering this alert? Whoa. Nova images generic builds app 13.
Please keep it down. I'm trying to work.
You are always asking me to be quiet. Or you stop talking on the speakerphone. I'm trying to work. Oh, stop blasting Nickelback. I have stuff to do. Blah, blah, blah. My delicate ears. Why don't you mind your own business and get back to whatever trivial work you're doing? Some of us have important things to do. All right. So how did Nova best me again? I really do have a lot to learn from Nova. Is it weird to say I kind of admire him?
Did you hear that? Did Ozzie just call my work trivial yet again? And he keeps assuming that Nova is male because he is good at hacking. Forget ransoming stolen data. I want this guy to pay. Here's what we're going to do. When I was still able to commit as Ozzie back before he set up multi-factor authentication and Kyverno, then I started running my own container that was disguised to look like Ozzie's company's build service. That's what's causing his alert right now. He doesn't know it. It's a common rookie mistake for orgs to give extra privileges to their build services. And I'm going to use my trivial skills to exploit Ozzie's mistake and ruin him. I'm going to make sure his entire career is trivial. Ozzie isolated his build service in a CI/CD namespace of his cluster. Here, let me show you. Here's the build service in the CI/CD namespace. Ozzie already had measures in place to isolate the CI/CD namespace from the rest of his cluster, thinking this will protect him from attack. That's just laughable, honestly. From my privileged running build service container, I'm going to use a tool called nsenter. And I'm going to use that to break out of the container's Linux namespace and into the host namespace on the machine. And now I can run commands on the host server and gain access as root. And now I can see everything on the entire machine.
What's up? All right. Back to that image that triggered our policy alert. Nova Images generic build app 1337. Wait, 1337? Isn't that the hacker term for elite, as in elite? Oh, man. Nova's making me look like a noob right now. Let's look at what's being run. Not only is Nova running a build service container, Nova has given a number of extra privileges to that container, including permissions to the host machine. But thinking about it, if Nova is running a container with privileges, I'm pretty sure he would be able to move laterally onto the machine running the container. If that's the case, I'm not in a great position right now. I'm going to need to do something to fix this. Right. Let's update our runtime policies to make rules around what can happen at the kernel level. The kernel is part of the underlying server, so it's not managed by the Kubernetes cluster. But if someone has access to the kernel, they can track what's going on in the Kubernetes cluster. Runtime policies can prevent bad actors from elevating their privileges or moving laterally on the machine. So let's add a runtime security tool with eBPF, a tool like Falco or KubeArmor. With one of these tools, I can monitor all communications happening on the kernel and enforce policies at runtime. eBPF is a technology that allows code to run in the Linux kernel without changing kernel source code or loading kernel modules. eBPF gives us a lot of power, but as we all know, with great power comes great responsibility.
Here I am. They have access to this whole machine in Ozzie's cluster as root. Let's see if I can listen in on any of the traffic that's going across the network. The traffic's all encrypted. Drat, Ozzie must have added service mesh. Dang, he's getting good. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add my own eBPF-based tool called BoopKit. With eBPF, I can see and manipulate what's going on in Ozzie's cluster at the kernel level. Which, as a side note, BoopKit was created by Chris Nova, a cloud-native security researcher, a wonderful human, and friend. She inspired my name, but she used her hacking skills for good, not for evil like me. Although I think she might have appreciated me taking Ozzie down. Right, okay, so I'm going to use BoopKit so I can mess with Ozzie's running kernel. Usually the first thing I would do is to use BoopKit to see the system calls on Ozzie's Kubernetes node. Normally I'd look for data that I could sell or ransom, but this has gotten personal, Ozzie. Let me show you what trivial work your male antagonist is up to over here. I'm planting a fork bomb. So a fork bomb is a bash function that gets executed recursively. It's literally those characters at the top of the slide right now. It's a denial of service attack where a process continuously replicates itself and depletes system resources. I see you taking photos of it too, friend. This is what you get, you egotistical, male pronoun assuming, fish microwaving, sloppy Kubernetes operator. Take this, Ozzie! Wait, what? It didn't work? Oh no, I just lost access to the cluster? I didn't have enough time to run this fork bomb. No! Oh, no. Oh, it looks like I'm completely shut out. Dang it.
Oh, hey, there. What caused the loud one in the brewery now?
I'm here. Fucking worse.
Okay, so here's what happened. When I was planning to add Falco onto the node, I noticed something didn't look right. Immediately, Falco alerted about other kernel activity. I was worried Nova might have been updating things at the same time. I alerted BigCorp Security, and we put plans together to quarantine the cluster. the engineering team provisioned me a new cluster. And this new cluster contains everything we put in place over the last 30-ish minutes. All right. Also redirected all customer traffic into the new cluster. Nova, in the meantime, will be seeing a big fat access denied, right? And since we still have access to the old cluster, we can now use forensics to see how Nova infiltrated the system. The best part is we have a brand new cluster with hardened security.
Oh, can I tell them about the security features of the new cluster?
How do you know what I'm doing over here?
Don't worry about it. So first of all, the Kube API isn't public. It can only be accessed from within BigCorp. Then Ozzie had least privilege RBAC. So we have one heavily guarded, privileged admin account only to be used in emergency scenarios. Regular users should have only view-only access. But if regular users have view-only access and nothing more, then how are they able to do their work? We do that with GitOps. GitOps tool is the one interacting with Kube API. So instead of a user or a tool reaching into the cluster, accessing Kube API, instead the GitOps tool reaches outside of the cluster, pulls in what it needs, and it's the only thing talking to Kube API. But now we have GitOps as our threat boundary. So now we need multi-factor authentication aided by GitSign. Probably good to do peer reviews on your pull requests also. And then Ozzie added Kubernetes network policies. Ozzie did this specifically to stop me from using the fake message queue app to send data outside of the cluster. But network policy can be used, of course, to prevent a whole host of problems. Then Ozzie added MTLS using service mesh. MTLS does two things. It provides identity to pods and lets them authenticate to one another. And then it also encrypts traffic that's going in between pods to encrypt traffic on the network. Then Ozzie added cluster level policy like OPA or OPA Gatekeeper or Kyverno. If he had this in the first place, I wouldn't have been able to apply weird YAML to the cluster or pull untrusted container images. So Ozzie used this to make policy at the cluster level. And generally you use OPA or Gatekeeper to make cluster level policy that's organization specific. So like only my container registry is all we're allowed to use. Then Ozzie added runtime policy like Falco or KubeArmor. So you can use these tools to monitor calls that are happening at the kernel level and set policy around what's happening there. That's about right, eh? I get it? Yeah?
Yeah, that's very good. All right, so this was my cluster at the beginning. And looking back at it, I'm a little embarrassed that I thought that was good. But to be fair, I didn't know then, I didn't know 30 minutes ago what I know now. Right? And this is closer to what a hardened cluster should look like, although there's always room for improvement. I finally understand why people describe security like layers of an onion, right? Every time we added a new tool, we added another layer of security, right? These layers are what we refer to as defense in depth, allowing us to defend our cluster from a variety of attacks. Now, if any part of our system is compromised, they will be stopped by the next layer of the security onion. Wow, all this great security work and talk about onions is making me hungry. I think I'm gonna go microwave a burrito. Yeah.
The
Right.
This is Peter. Peter, will you introduce yourself,
Yep.
please?
Hi, everyone. I'm Peter O'Neill. I'm a solutions engineer at Teleport.
And my name is Whitney Lee. I'm a technical advocate at Datadog. I wrote this talk a lot with my friend Lewis for KubeCon in Chicago, I guess about 2 years ago. But Peter volunteered to play Ozzie today. So thank you, Peter. And Peter did a lot to really make the role his own. So thanks for putting work into it.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, y'all.
Thanks, everyone.